The knock came hard, 3 strikes that rattled the hinges. He was already moving, rifle in hand, boots silent on the floor. No one came this deep into the mountains by accident. When he opened the door, the wind pushed in first, then her. Dust-covered, breathing hard, eyes sharp, unafraid. His rifle didn't lower. "You found the wrong cabin," he warned. She didn't step back. "If it's the wrong one," she said, voice steady despite the blood on her sleeve. "Then why open the door?" That's when he saw it, the arrow lodged shallow in her side, Apache make. And behind her, far down the ridge, riders were coming. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. Let her in and bring war to his door, or turn her away and leave her to die where she stood. Before we go further, subscribe if you haven't. Drop a like if you're already in. Now back to the cabin. The knock came hard, 3 strikes that rattled the hinges. Elia's work was already moving. The rifle came off its hooks like it had a mind of its own. Boots found the floor without a sound. No wasted motion, no hesitation. Men didn't climb this far into the mountains unless they meant something by it, or unless they were desperate. He reached the door and paused, listening. Wind. Just wind and something else beneath it. A breath not his own. He pulled the door open. Cold air shoved its way inside first, then her. She stumbled once over the threshold but caught herself before falling. Dust clung to her like a second skin. Her hair was pulled back tight, streaked with sweat and grit. Blood darkened one sleeve, slow and steady. Her eyes found his immediately, sharp, awake, unafraid. Elia's did lower the rifle. "You found the wrong cabin," he said, voice flat as stone. She didn't step back. Didn't even glance at the barrel pointed square at her chest. "If it's the wrong one," she answered, steady despite the strain in her breathing, "then why open the door?" The words hung there between them, quiet and dangerous. That's when he saw it, the arrow. It sat shallow in her side, the shaft snapped halfway down but still lodged firm. Not crude, not rushed. Apache make. Elia's grip tightened, not from fear but recognition. He shifted his gaze past her, out into the gray stretch of ridge below. Movement, far off but there. Riders cutting across the slope, spreading out like they knew how to hunt a man through broken country. Or a woman. He looked back at her. She hadn't turned to check. Didn't need to, she already knew they were there. "This isn't your land," he said. "It isn't theirs either," she replied. Something in the way she said it, quiet, certain, set wrong in his chest. He took a step forward, closing the distance just enough to study her better. No shaking hands, no wild eyes, no begging, just control. Too much of it for someone bleeding. "You run from them," he said. "I led them away from others," she corrected. That stopped him. Not long, just a moment, but long enough. Behind her, the wind shifted, carried faint echoes of hooves striking rock. Closer now. Elias exhaled through his nose, slow and measured. His world had been small for a long time. Wood, fire, sky. No questions, no debts, no people. He looked at the arrow again. At the way she stood, holding herself upright through pain without asking for help. Not prey, not lost. A scout. He knew the kind. Watched them once, years back, move through land like it spoke to them. This one stood in his doorway like she belonged nowhere else. "They're your people," he said, though it sounded more like a test than a question. Her eyes hardened just slightly. "Not anymore." The answer came quick, clean, like something already decided. Another beat of silence stretched between them. Then the wind carried something else. Smoke, faint, distant, but there. Elias turned his head just enough to catch it, then looked back at her. "You bring trouble with you," he said. "I brought a warning to others," she replied. This is what followed. Simple words, heavy ones. He understood them better than he wanted to. This wasn't a wrong turn, wasn't a lost traveler knocking on the nearest door. This was a fracture, something broken loose from where it belonged. And now it stood bleeding on his threshold. Elias shifted his stance, the rifle still steady in his hands. "If I let you in," he said quietly, "they don't stop here." "No," she agreed. No hesitation, no lie. His jaw tightened. He had lived a long time by one rule: stay out of it, out of wars, out of causes, out of other men's choices. That door behind him, it kept the world where it belonged. Outside, he looked at her one last time, blood running, eyes steady, waiting, not asking. Elias stepped back just enough to clear the doorway. "Inside," he said, and in that moment, before she even moved, he knew he hadn't just opened a door. He had stepped back into the world. The wind pressed hard against the cabin walls, slipping through the seams like it knew something was about to break. Elias Rourke stood just inside the doorway, rifle still lifted, the weight of the moment settling deeper than the cold. Behind the woman, the ridge stretched wide and empty, but not for long. Hoofbeats carried now, faint but steady, closing. She didn't turn to look, didn't need to, she already knew. "They're tracking clean," she said, her voice low, controlled. "They won't lose me." Elias didn't answer. He could still end this. One step forward, one hard shove, close the door, drop the bar, and let the mountain take the rest. He had done it before. Not like this, but close enough. Years back, when trouble came riding under a different name. When men bled and burned over causes that never reached this high. He had watched from a distance then, stayed out of it. Let the world eat itself while he kept to wood, water, and silence. That's how a man lived long out here, by not choosing. His eyes moved past her again. The riders were clearer now, dark shapes splitting across the slope, cutting angles, not rushing, hunting, not angry, certain. That was worse. He shifted his grip on the rifle. "Step inside," he said. She didn't move. Not right away. Her gaze held his, measuring again like she was waiting for something more than words. "You don't understand," she said quietly. "They won't stop at your door." "I know what men do," Elias replied, a faint shake of her head. "No, you know what men do when they're afraid." A pause. "These ones believe they're right." That settled heavier. Elias stepped forward, closing the space between them, then reached out, not gently, and caught her by the arm. She tensed but didn't pull away. He dragged her inside, turned, and slammed the door shut. The wooden bar dropped into place with a dull, final sound. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The cabin seemed smaller now, too small. Elias moved quickly, setting the rifle against the wall but within reach. His hands went to the arrow. "Hold still," he said. "I am," she answered. He snapped the shaft clean near the wound. The sound was sharp, final. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't cry out, didn't even flinch beyond that. He noticed that. Of course he did. Elias crossed to the small table, grabbing a cloth, a knife, a tin of something bitter-smelling. When he turned back, she had already shifted, bracing herself against the wall, one hand pressed lightly to the wound. "Sit," he said. "I can stand." "You won't for long." That earned the faintest ghost of something in her expression. Not quite a smile, but close. She lowered herself onto the edge of the chair anyway. Elias worked without ceremony, cut the cloth away, cleaned the blood, studied the angle. "Lucky," he muttered. "Missed anything that matters." "Luck didn't put it there," she said. "No," he agreed, "but it kept you breathing." He gripped the broken shaft and pulled. Her breath caught just once, then steadied again. The arrow came free. Blood followed, but not as bad as it could have been. Elias packed the wound, tied it tight, then stepped back. "There," he said. She tested the binding with a careful breath. "Good enough." Outside, the sound of hooves was no longer distant. Elias moved to the small window, just enough of a slit to see through. Figures now, clear shapes, 5, maybe 6, spreading out. "They'll circle," he said. "Check for sign, maybe call out." "They won't call," she said. "Not for me." That told him something. Why? "They already know where I am." Elias let that settle. He turned back to her. "Then why chase?" he asked, to make a point. The way she said it, it wasn't fear, it was understanding. Elias looked around the cabin. Simple things, his things, the stove, the table, the cot in the corner. Years of quiet built into every plank. And now, footsteps outside, slow, careful, testing. A shadow past the window, another near the back wall. They were here. Elias reached for the rifle again. He could still try, take one, maybe two before they closed in. But that wasn't how this ended, not with men like that, not with this kind of hunt. "They'll burn it," she said softly, as if reading his thoughts. He didn't answer because she was right. His gaze moved back to her. "You led them away from others," he said. "Yes." "Settlers." A nod. "They would have killed them." "And instead," he said, glancing toward the door, "they'll kill you." "Yes." No hesitation, no regret. That landed differently. Elias stepped away from the window. "They won't just kill you," he said. "They'll make sure it's seen." "Yes." "And anyone who helps you." "Yes." He let out a slow breath. That was the shape of it, clear now, not confusion, not chance, a message. Elias looked at the door, at the bar holding it closed, at the life on the other side of it, the one he had kept small, quiet, untouched, gone, already gone. He crossed to the back wall, pulled open a low hatch hidden beneath stacked firewood, a narrow passage half hidden by brush and rock beyond. Her eyes followed the movement. "A back trail," she said. "Yes." "You're leaving." "We are," he corrected. Something shifted in her expression then, not relief, something closer to respect. Elias grabbed a small pack, moving fast now. Dried meat, water, ammunition. He slung the rifle across his back, then pulled a second weapon from beneath the cot. "Can you walk?" he asked. She stood, slow, controlled. "Yes." He studied her a moment longer, then nodded. "Then we don't wait." A sound hit the front door then. Not a knock, a test, wood creaking under pressure. They were checking. Elias didn't look back. He pushed the hatch open wider. "Move," he said. She slipped through first, vanishing into shadow and brush. Elias followed, pulling the hatch closed behind him just as another heavy impact struck the front door. Wood splintered. Voices low, sharp, controlled, not shouting, not angry, certain. Elias didn't stop moving. They climbed. Up through narrow cuts in the rock, through brush that clawed at clothing, over ground that shifted underfoot. The trail was no trail at all, just memory, just instinct. He moved fast but not reckless. She kept pace. That told him more than anything she had said. The wound slowed her, but not enough. She watched everything, every ridge, every shift in the wind, a scout, no doubt now. Behind them a sound rose, faint at first, then clearer, a crack, then another, smoke. Elias didn't turn, didn't need to, but she did. Just once. Her eyes fixed on the thin line rising into the sky. "Your cabin," she said. "Yes." "They burned it fast." "They knew they would." Silence again, then. "No going back," she said. Elias kept moving. "No." The mountain narrowed as they climbed. Paths became edges. Edges became choices. Wrong step meant broken bone, or worse. The air thinned. The wind shifted colder. Below, the valley spread wide, but no longer safe. Tracks would be easy to follow there. Up here. Harder, but not impossible. "They'll split," she said after a while. "They already have." "You know this terrain well." "I know how to stay alive in it." She glanced at him then. "That's not the same thing." Elias didn't answer, because she was right. Staying alive had always meant staying alone. That wasn't true anymore. By midday the sun burned harsh against the stone, but the wind cut through it all the same. They stopped only once. Brief. Water passed between them, no wasted words, then on again. By late afternoon the signs began. Elias saw them first, tracks, not theirs, fresh, cutting across a slope where no one should have been. He crouched low, studying them. 3 riders. Maybe more, splitting wide. "They're ahead of us," he said. She stepped closer, careful, "or cutting us off." He looked up at the ridge above. High ground, control. "They know this place," he said. "Yes." "Your people." A pause, then. "No." That was worse. "Who then?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked out over the land like she was measuring something larger than the moment. "Men who learned our ways," she said finally, "but forgot why they mattered." Elias stood slowly. That told him enough. Not just hunters, something else, something broken. The sun dipped lower. Shadows stretched long. They moved again. Slower now, more careful, every step chosen, every sound weighed. By nightfall, the mountain closed in tight around them. A narrow stretch of rock and scrub where sound carried wrong too far in some places, not at all in others. Elias stopped, held up a hand. She froze, listened. Nothing. And that was the problem. "They're close," he said. "Yes." "How many?" "Enough." He looked at her, at the calm in her face, at the certainty. "You're not afraid," he said. She met his gaze. "I am," she answered, "just not of dying." That left a silence between them that the mountain seemed to swallow whole. Elias turned, scanning the darkening ridges. He could feel it now, not just the threat, the shape of it, closing, patient, certain. This wasn't a chase anymore, it was a hunt, and they were already inside it. Elias just made his choice. But the mountain isn't hiding them anymore, it's holding them still. If this story has you locked in, hit that like button now and subscribe if you haven't. Because the hunters aren't just tracking them anymore. They're already in position. And what happens when the shadows finally step forward is coming in the next few minutes, and you won't see it coming. Night settled slow and cold over the high ground. Elias didn't build a fire, didn't risk the light or the smoke or the scent of it drifting wrong through the rock. Instead, he chose a narrow cut between two ridges, a place where the wind curled back on itself and sound lost its way. He sat with his back to stone, rifle resting across his knees, eyes half-lidded but never closed. Across from him, the woman Tala sat the same way she had all day, upright, quiet, watching. The wound in her side had slowed her but not broken her rhythm. Even now, she held herself like someone who had learned long ago that weakness, once shown, never stayed unseen. For a long while, neither of them spoke. The mountain carried its own language at night, wind scraping over rock, loose gravel shifting under its own weight, the far-off cry of something hunting something else, but beneath it all. Elias felt it, not sound, presence. He didn't move. "They're here," Tala said softly. Elias didn't look at her. "I know." "How long have you known?" "Since before we stopped." A pause. "You let me sit anyway." "I wanted them to see where we chose to rest." That drew her eyes sharper. "You're not running anymore." "No." The word landed flat. True. He had spent years stepping around trouble, slipping between its edges, letting it pass by while he stayed untouched. That wasn't possible now. And somewhere along the climb, maybe when the smoke rose from his cabin, maybe before, he had stopped trying. Tala studied him in the low gray of moonlight. "You understand what this is?" she said. "Yes." "And you're still here." He didn't answer, didn't need to. The wind shifted and the mountain changed. Elias felt it before he saw it. The silence tightened, not emptiness, control. He straightened slightly, just enough to ease the rifle into a better angle, not raised, not threatening, ready. Shapes moved where there had been none, not sudden, not careless. Men stepping from shadow like they had always been there. One on the ridge above. Another to the left, half hidden behind a jagged line of rock. Two more further back. Then more. Not rushing, not circling like wolves, positioning, claiming ground. Tala didn't reach for anything, didn't shift. She simply watched them emerge, her face unreadable. Elias counted without turning his head. 6. No. 8, maybe more. He couldn't see. Enough. They were surrounded but not overwhelmed. That was the difference. These men didn't need to prove anything. They already knew what they were. One figure stepped forward from the ridge above. Older, not by weakness, but by presence. His movements were unhurried, deliberate. Each step placed with care, as if the ground itself had weight enough to matter. He carried no rifle. only a long knife at his side and something else Elias couldn't quite make out in the low light. Authority didn't need to be shown, it was felt. The others didn't speak, didn't move. They held their positions, watching. The man came to a stop a few paces away, close enough for faces to be seen, for choices to be read. His eyes settled on Elias, not on Tala. That told Elias everything. This wasn't about the one being hunted. This was about the one who chose to stand with her. The man spoke. His voice was low, steady. The words not rushed. "You crossed into our ground," he said. Elias met his gaze. "No," he answered. "I was already here." A flicker of something passed through the man's eyes. Not anger, recognition, a different kind of measuring. "You brought her with you." "She came to my door." That hung there, simple, unadorned. The man's gaze shifted then just briefly to Tala. There was weight in that look, history, judgment, then back to Elias. "Do you know who she is?" The man asked. "Yes." "Say it." Elias didn't hesitate. "A scout." Silence. The wind pressed through the rocks again, low and restless. The man took one step closer. "Not just a scout," he said. "She was trusted." The word was deliberate, heavy. Elias didn't respond because he understood what came with it. The man continued. "She walked between camps, carried words that decided life and death." A pause, and she chose to break that. Now the weight shifted, not toward Elias, toward Tala. Elias glanced at her then. She hadn't moved, but something in her posture had tightened, not in fear but in readiness. She wasn't denying it, wasn't explaining. She was standing inside it. The man's voice sharpened just slightly. "You know what that means?" Elias answered, "Yes." "Then why help her?" There it was, not accusation, not yet, a question, a test. The others watched, not impatient, not restless, waiting. Elias let the silence sit for a moment. Long enough that the wind filled it, long enough that the question had weight, then he spoke. "She knocked," he said, a pause. "I opened." Nothing more, no defense, no explanation, no justification, just truth. The mountain seemed to hold its breath. The man studied him, really studied him now, not as an outsider, not as a trespasser, as something else, a man who had chosen, the kind of man that could not be easily placed. "You knew they were coming," the man said. "Yes." "You saw the mark in her side." "Yes." "You understood what would follow." "Yes." Each answer came the same way, flat, unshaken. The man took another step closer, close enough now that Elias could see the lines in his face, years carved not by time alone but by decision. "Then you chose to stand in it." "Yes." "Yes." The word landed between them like something set in stone. The man's gaze didn't break, didn't soften, but something shifted, not approval, not yet recognition. He turned his head slightly, spoke a few words in his own tongue, low, measured. The others responded not in voices but in small movements, adjustments of stance, a shift in attention, a conversation without noise. Then his eyes moved to Tala, for the first time fully. "You broke your word," he said. Tala met his gaze. "I kept it," she answered. A flicker of tension rippled through the men around them, not loud but real. The man's expression didn't change. "You were sent to watch," he said, "to listen, not to interfere." "I watched," she said. "I listened. And then I chose." That word again, choice. It seemed to echo through everything. The man's voice lowered further. "You chose strangers over your own people." "I chose those who would die without knowing why," she said. A pause, then. "They were not the enemy." That line hung heavier than anything before it. The men around them shifted again, not in anger, in disagreement, in something deeper. The man held her gaze. "And you decided that alone." "Yes." "You believed your judgment above the council." "No," she said. I believed their lives mattered. Silence again, longer this time. The mountain seemed to lean in. Elias watched it all without moving, without stepping in. This wasn't his ground to speak on, not yet. The man turned back to him. And now, he said, you carry her choice. Elias didn't flinch. Yes. Yes. Do you understand what that binds you to? I do. Say it. Elias met his eyes. It binds me to whatever comes next. No hesitation. No attempt to soften it, the truth again. The man studied him for a long moment, then slowly. He nodded once. It wasn't approval, but it wasn't rejection either. A line had been crossed and not undone. He stepped back just slightly, enough to shift the shape of the moment. You are not one of us, he said. No. You are not our enemy. Elias didn't answer, because that wasn't his to claim. The man's eyes narrowed just a fraction. Not yet. There it was, clear, honest. The ground between them wasn't safe, but it wasn't closed either. He turned again, speaking to the others in that same low, measured tone. This time the response came in murmurs. Not loud but present, division not full but enough. Elias could feel it. This wasn't a single will. This was a balance, and that balance had not settled. The man raised a hand. The murmurs stopped. He looked back at Elias. You will come with us, he said, not a command, not quite, but close. Elias nodded. Where? To where this choice began. Elias didn't ask more, didn't need to. He understood. This wasn't over, not by a long measure. The man's gaze shifted once more to Tala. You will answer for what you did, he said. I will, she replied, no fear, just acceptance. The man turned, began to walk. The others moved with him, not surrounding, not crowding, but guiding. Elias stood, lifting his rifle but not raising it. Not now. Tala rose beside him, slow, controlled. They fell into step, not prisoners, not free, something in between. As they moved through the narrow pass, the sky began to pale at its edges. Dawn coming, cold and quiet. Elias glanced once at Tala. You knew this would happen, he said. Yes. And you came anyway. Yes. He studied her for a moment, then looked ahead again. The path narrowed. The figures ahead moved like part of the land itself. And Elias understood something then, clearer than before. He hadn't just stepped back into the world. He had stepped into something older than him, something that didn't bend easy, and whatever came next would not be decided by force, but by the weight of what a man chose to stand for. The light grew stronger, and with it, the shape of judgment waiting ahead. They walked through first light without a word. The mountains opened slowly, not in welcome but in exposure. What had been tight stone and shadow gave way to a shallow basin carved between ridges, a place hidden from distance but not from those who knew where to look. Elias saw it before they stepped fully into it. A camp, not large, not permanent, but deliberate. Low shelters built close to the ground. Fires burned small, controlled, their smoke thin and careful. Horses were tied in a line along the far edge, heads low, restless but disciplined. Nothing wasted, nothing careless. This was not a place for living. This was a place for decisions. The men who had surrounded them broke formation without signal. Each moved to a purpose, some toward the horses, some toward the fires, others to the edges of the basin where the ridges narrowed again. Elias and Tala were left standing near the center, not bound, not guarded, but not ignored, that same balance again. The older man, the one who had spoken, continued forward without looking back, then stopped near a low fire and knelt. He did not call them over. He did not need to. After a moment, Elias stepped forward. Tala followed. They stopped a few paces from him. The man stirred something in a small iron pot, then set it aside. Only then did he look up. Morning light caught his face, now lined, weathered but steady. The kind of face that had watched many men choose and remembered which ones mattered. You came without struggle, he said. Elias shrugged slightly. No reason to waste it. A faint trace of something, approval perhaps, passed through the man's eyes. Then he looked at Tala. "You still walk," he said. "Yes." "The wound." "Not enough." That answer held more than its words. The man studied her a long moment. Then he stood. Around them the camp moved in quiet rhythm. No one stopped to watch openly, but Elias felt it anyway. The weight of attention, controlled, measured. Nothing here was accidental. "This is not where we judge," the man said at last. "Then why bring us?" Elias asked. "To see what stands before that moment." Elias said nothing. The man turned, gesturing slightly toward the far side of the basin. "Come." They walked again, this time not through wild ground but through the edges of something held together by order. Elias noticed the details. Weapons stacked but within reach. Tracks smoothed where they didn't need to be seen. Children. No, not children, young men, watching, learning. This was a place where decisions were taught, not just made. They stopped near a flat stretch of earth marked by old fire pits and worn ground, a place used before, more than once. The man turned to face them. "Here," he said, "we speak truth before it is weighed." Elias glanced at Tala. She stood as she had since the beginning, upright, silent, unbent. The man addressed her first. "You were sent to watch the settlers in the valley," he said. "Yes." "You were told they would be removed." "Yes." "You understood what that meant." "Yes." Each answer came clean. No delay, no attempt to soften it. The man's gaze hardened slightly. "And you warned them." "I did." A murmur moved through the camp then. Quiet but not hidden. Elias didn't turn toward it, didn't need to. He could feel the shift. The line she had crossed, it mattered here. The man stepped closer to her. "Why?" he asked. Tala met his gaze. "They were families," she said. "Not fighters, not soldiers. They were not ours. They were not enemies." The man's jaw tightened just a fraction. "That is not for you to decide. It was for me to act." Silence fell again. He studied her like a man measuring something that did not fit the shape he expected. "You chose mercy," he said. "Yes." "You chose it over order." "Yes." "You chose it knowing what it would bring." "Yes." Each word settled deeper than the last. Not defiance, not pride, just truth. The man turned away from her then. His eyes moved to Elias. "And you," he said, "you stepped into this knowing nothing of it." "I knew enough," Elias replied. "Did you?" The man asked. "You saw the arrow, the pursuit, you understood she was hunted." A pause, "But you did not know why." Elias nodded once. "No." "And still you chose." "Yes." The man took a slow step toward him. "Why?" Elias held his gaze. "She knocked," he said again. A flicker of something passed through the man's face, recognition, perhaps, of the same answer. "That is not enough," he said. "It was for me." "You would risk your life for a knock." Elias didn't hesitate. "I'd risk it for what it meant." The man's eyes narrowed. "And what did it mean?" Elias glanced briefly at Tala, then back. "That someone came asking for help instead of taking it." That landed, not loudly, but deep. The man stood still for a long moment, then slowly. He nodded, not agreement, understanding. He stepped back. "Now you know," he said, "and still you stand." "Yes." "You are not bound to this." "I am now." "Only if you choose to be." Elias didn't answer right away. The wind moved lightly through the basin, carrying the scent of smoke and something older beneath it. He looked around, at the men, at the order, at the place where judgment would come, then back at the man. "You said this is not where you judge," Elias said. "No." "Then what is this?" A moment before that, Elias let out a slow breath. And after this moment, the man held his gaze. There is no turning from what is said here. That was clear enough. The man shifted his stance slightly, then spoke in a different tone, less measured, more direct. "You can leave," he said. The words cut through everything else. Elias didn't move. "Now," the man continued, "before we go further, before her choice becomes yours in full." Silence spread across the basin. Even the small movements of the camp seemed to slow. The offer hung there, clean, simple, walk away, live, return to whatever life remained after the fire. Elias felt the weight of it, more than the threat of death, more than the presence of these men, the weight of stepping back, of returning to the man he had been. Alone, untouched, untested, he looked at Tala. She didn't look at him, didn't ask, didn't expect. She stood exactly as she had when she first stepped through his door, waiting, not for rescue, for judgment. The man watched him. "You owe her nothing," he said. "True. You owe us nothing. Also true. You can walk from this and it will end here for you." Elias looked down at the ground for a moment, at the worn earth where others had stood before him, men who had chosen, men who had walked away, men who had stayed. Then he lifted his gaze. "If I leave," he said slowly, "what happens to her?" The man's expression did not change. "She will answer for what she did." "And that answer," a pause then, "will not be mercy." That settled it. Elias let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He looked at Tala again. Still no plea, still no fear, just that same quiet readiness. He turned back to the man. "You said I could leave," Elias said. "Yes. But she cannot." "No. Because she chose." "Yes." Elias nodded once, then, "So did I." The words landed clean, final. The man studied him, longer this time, deeper, then slowly. He inclined his head, a small motion, but enough. "Then you will stand with her," he said. "Yes." "You will hear what is said." "Yes." "And you will accept what follows." Elias didn't hesitate. "Yes." The man stepped back. The moment shifted, not resolved, but set. Around them the camp began to move again, faster now, more directed, preparations. Elias felt it. Whatever came next was no longer distant. The man turned slightly, speaking to others nearby, orders given in low, precise tones. Men moved. The space began to change, not physically, but in purpose. Tala finally spoke. Quiet, "You could have left." Elias didn't look at her. "I know." "You should have." "Maybe." A pause then. "Why didn't you?" she asked. Elias took a moment before answering because the truth mattered here more than it had anywhere else. "You knocked," he said. A faint exhale left her, not quite a laugh, not quite anything else. Then silence again. The sun rose higher, light filled the basin, and with it, the shape of what was coming became clearer. This was not a place of anger, not a place of revenge. It was a place where choices were weighed, measured, and answered. Elias stood in it now, not as an outsider, not anymore, as a man who had stepped into something that would not let him remain unchanged, and somewhere ahead, beyond this moment, waited the judgment that would decide what that change would cost. They gave him the night. No ceremony, no warning, just a shift in the camp, the kind a man only noticed if he knew how to listen for it. The fires burned a little lower. Voices fell off sooner than they should have. Men moved with purpose but without urgency. Everything settled, waiting. Elias sat near one of the smaller fires at the edge of the basin, the flames low enough not to cast too much light. His rifle rested across his knees, untouched. He wasn't guarding himself. There was no point in that now. Across the fire, Tala sat on a flat stone, her hands resting loosely at her sides. The bandage at her ribs had darkened, but not enough to slow her breathing, not enough to change the way she held herself. Still upright, still steady, still unafraid, or at least unwilling to show it. Elias watched her for a long time without speaking. There was something about the way she carried the quiet, not like most people. Most filled silence with something: fear, regret, words they didn't need to say. She didn't. She let it stand, owned it. Finally, he spoke. "You've known this was coming." She didn't look at him. "Yes." "How long?" "Since before I knocked on your door." That settled between them. Elias leaned back slightly, the rock behind him cold through his coat. "And you came anyway?" "Yes." He studied her. "You didn't think you'd outrun them?" "No." "Didn't think you'd hide?" "No." "Then why run at all?" That made her pause, not long, but long enough to matter. "To lead them away," she said, "to give the others time." Elias nodded slowly. "You already did that." "Yes." "Then why not stop?" Now she looked at him, because that was the real question. "Because stopping," she said quietly, "means accepting what they believe about what I did." "And you don't?" "No." A beat passed. "What do you believe?" he asked. She held his gaze. "That I chose right." No hesitation, no doubt, just that. Elias looked back into the fire. He understood that kind of certainty didn't come easy, didn't come cheap. He had seen men claim it before. Few held it when the cost came due. "You know what they'll do," he said. "Yes." "They won't call it murder." "No." "They'll call it order." "Yes." "And you'll stand there and let them." "Yes." The word came without strain. That bothered him more than anything else. Elias rubbed a hand along his jaw, slow, thoughtful. "You don't plan to fight," he said. "No." "You don't plan to run." "No." "You're just going to stand there." "Yes." Another silence. The fire cracked softly, a small shift of embers collapsing inward. Elias watched it happen, a structure holding until it didn't, then just heat and ash. "You think that changes anything?" he asked. Tala didn't answer right away. She looked past him toward the dark ridge beyond the camp. "I think," she said slowly, "that how a person stands matters more than whether they fall." Elias let that sit, turned it over in his mind. It wasn't something most people would understand, but he did, more than he liked. "You're not trying to live," he said. "I already did what I needed to do." "That's not the same thing." "It is to me." Elias exhaled through his nose, that look in her eyes. He knew it, had seen it once before, a long time ago. A man standing in a different kind of fire, refusing to step back even when stepping back meant living. Elias had walked away from that moment, watched it burn from a distance, told himself it wasn't his place, told himself staying alive mattered more. He had lived with that, built a whole life around it, quiet, safe, empty. His gaze lifted again. "You ever think about what comes after?" he asked. "After what?" "After they decide." She held his eyes. "There is no after." He shook his head slightly. "There's always an after." "Not for me." Elias leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. "That's where you're wrong." She didn't respond, didn't argue, but something in her expression shifted, just a fraction. Elias saw it, didn't press it, because this wasn't about convincing her. It was about understanding something he hadn't faced in a long time: choice. Not survival, not instinct, choice. The fire burned lower. The camp grew quieter. One by one, the figures around them settled into rest or watch. But even in stillness, nothing here truly slept. Elias glanced toward the center of the basin. The older man stood there, speaking quietly with two others, his posture unchanged, his presence steady. He knew exactly what tomorrow would bring. He had done this before, many times. Elias wondered what it cost him, if it cost him anything at all. "You can still leave," Tala said suddenly. Elias looked back at her. That's what he said. "It's still true. Not for me. You're not bound here." "I said I was." "You said it," she replied. "That doesn't make it so." Elias held her gaze. "Doesn't it?" "No." "Then what does?" She studied him for a moment. "Belief," she said. "Yours, not theirs." That landed harder than anything else she had said. Elias leaned back again, looked up at the sky. Stars scattered across it, sharp and distant. He had spent years under that sky, alone, free, or so he had thought. "You think I'm here for you," he said. "Aren't you?" "No." That surprised her. He saw it then. "Then why?" she asked. Elias took a long breath, let it out slow. "Because I've been here before," he said. She waited, didn't interrupt, didn't fill the space. Elias continued. "Not like this, not your people, not this place." A pause, but a moment where it would have cost me to stand, and I didn't. Her eyes didn't leave his. "What happened?" "I lived." That was all he said, but it carried enough. She understood, he could see it. "And that wasn't enough," she said. "No." Silence again, then. "This is different," she said. "No," Elias replied, "it is." The fire burned down to coals. The night deepened. Time moved, slow, unforgiving. Eventually the older man approached. He didn't sit, didn't ask. He simply stood near the edge of the firelight, his presence enough to shift the air. "You have until dawn," he said. Elias looked up. "I know." "You can still walk away." "I know." The man's eyes moved to Tala. "You will be called when the light comes." "I'll be ready," she said. The man studied her for a moment. Then Elias, "You both understand what tomorrow brings." "Yes," Elias said. "Then rest if you can." He turned and walked back into the dark, leaving them again. Elias watched him go, then looked back at Tala. "You sleep?" he asked. She shook her head. "No." "Me neither." They sat in silence after that, not empty, not heavy, just there. The kind of silence that comes when everything that needs saying has already been said. At some point the fire died completely, leaving only the faint gray of approaching dawn. The sky shifted. Black to blue, blue to pale, shapes emerged from shadow. Men rose. The camp came alive again, but different now, not routine, purpose. Elias stood slowly, his body stiff from the cold, from the long stillness. Tala rose with him. No hesitation, no delay. The older man stepped into the open space at the center of the basin. Others gathered around, not crowding, not pressing, but forming something, a circle, not perfect, but intentional. Elias felt it, the weight of it. This was the place. This was the moment. The man spoke, not loud, but carrying. "It is time." Tala stepped forward, into the open. Elias watched her go, watched the way she walked, not like someone being led, like someone arriving. She stopped at the center, faced the man, waited, no fear, no resistance, just that same quiet resolve. Elias stood at the edge of the circle, the world narrowing, the moment sharpening. He felt it then, clearer than anything before. This was the line, the one he had stepped around once, the one he had avoided, the one that had left something in him unfinished. The man began to speak, words in his own tongue first, then in Elias'. "This one chose against her people," he said. "She broke trust. She defied order." Each word fell like a stone. She stands now to answer for that choice. A pause, the air tightened. Elias felt his hands at his sides, still, but not empty. The man looked at Tala. "Do you deny it?" "No." "Do you regret it?" "No." Another pause, then. "You understand the cost?" "Yes." The man nodded slowly, then drew a breath. Elias knew what came next. He could feel it. The weight of the decision, the final step, the point where words ended and consequence began. He didn't think, didn't plan, didn't measure. He moved, one step forward, then another, into the circle. The movement drew every eye, but no one stopped him, not yet. Elias came to stand beside Tala, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. She didn't look at him, didn't need to, she knew. The man's gaze fixed on him. "This is not your place," he said. Elias met his eyes. "It is now. You were given a path away. I didn't take it. Then you accept what follows." Elias nodded once, then spoke, quiet, clear. "If she dies for that choice," he said, "you'll have to weigh mine too." The words settled over the circle, heavy, final, no taking them back, no softening them. A ripple moved through the gathered men, not loud, but real. Elias felt it, the shift, the weight of what he had done. Not just standing there, but claiming it, tying himself to her choice, to her consequence. The man studied him, long, deep, searching for something. Elias didn't look away, didn't move, didn't flinch. This was it. This was who he was, not the man who stayed out of it, not the man who watched from a distance. The man who stepped forward and accepted what came with it. The silence stretched. Then the man exhaled slowly. Not anger, not approval, something else, something harder to name. "You place your life beside hers," he said. "Yes. You understand what that means?" "Yes." The man nodded once, then turned slightly, addressing the others. Words passed between them, low, measured, not agreement, not yet, but not rejection either. Elias stood there, beside Tala. The circle around them, the weight of everything pressing in, and for the first time in a long time, there was no question left in him, no doubt, no distance, just the choice, and the man who had made it. Silence held the circle, not the kind that comes from uncertainty, the kind that comes when every man present understands exactly what has been placed before him and knows there is no easy way to carry it. Elias stood beside Tala, close enough to feel the steadiness of her breathing, not quick, not uneven, ready. The older man did not speak, not yet. His gaze moved once more over Elias, measuring the weight of what had just been said. Then, slowly, he turned away, not from them, from the circle, from the center. He faced the others, and began to speak. The words came low, deliberate, in a language Elias did not know, but understood in shape if not in sound. Measured, not rushed. This was not argument, this was something older. The men responded in turn, not all at once. One voice, then another, some short, some longer, different tones, different weights. Elias didn't need the words to feel it. Division, not chaos, not anger, but something deeper. A balance shifting, a line being redrawn. He kept his eyes forward, didn't look at them. Didn't look at Tala, because this moment wasn't his to influence anymore. He had already done what he could. Now it belonged to them. The exchange continued, voices rising slightly, then falling again. Not shouting, never that, but firm, certain. Each man placing his piece of truth into the space. Elias caught fragments, not in meaning, but in rhythm. Some voices sharp like cut stone, others slower, heavier, one or two softer, not weakness, consideration. Time stretched. The sun climbed higher. Light filled the basin, casting long shadows that slowly short. Still they spoke. Still they weighed. Tala didn't move, didn't shift. She stood like part of the ground itself. Whatever came, she would meet it the same way she had met everything else. Elias glanced at her once, just once. Her eyes were forward. Fixed, not on the men, not on the leader, on something beyond it, or maybe on nothing at all. A man who has already accepted the end doesn't need to look at it. Elias understood that now, more than he ever had. The voices slowed, not stopping, but narrowing, fewer speaking. Longer pauses between them, the shape of a decision forming. The older man raised a hand. The voices stopped, not one at a time, all at once. Silence again, but different now, not waiting, holding. The man stood still for a moment, then turned back toward the center, toward Elias, toward Tala. His eyes settled on Tala first. Long, unreadable, then shifted to Elias. There was something new there, not warmth, not approval, recognition. The kind given to something that doesn't fit but cannot be ignored. He stepped forward, slow, deliberate. The circle tightened not physically but in focus. Every man watching, every breath held. The man stopped before them, close enough that there was no space left for distance. He spoke. "This choice," he said, his voice carrying clear now, "was not made lightly." No one moved, no one spoke. "It breaks trust," he continued. "It defies order, it challenges what holds people together." Each word struck clean, measured, true. Tala did not respond, she didn't need to. He turned his gaze fully to her. "You chose mercy," he said. "Yes. You chose it knowing it would cost you everything." "Yes." A pause then. "And still you stand in it." "Yes." The man held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded, not approval, acknowledgement. He shifted his eyes to Elias. "And you," he said, "chose to carry that with her." "Yes." "You were given a path away." "Yes." "You refused it." "Yes." Each answer came the same. No hesitation, no regret. The man studied him. "Then, you stand without claim," he said. "Not one of us, not bound by us." Elias said nothing. "Yet you chose to be bound by this moment." "Yes." The man drew a slow breath, then stepped back. The space between them opened just slightly, enough for what came next. He spoke again, this time not just to them, but to all. "This woman," he said, "will not be executed." The words landed, not like a release, not like relief, like a shift. A line moved, a balance adjusted. Elias felt it ripple through the circle, some stillness, some tension, some acceptance, not all, but enough. The man continued, "She is not forgiven." Tala's expression did not change. "She will carry what she has done. She will live with it. She will walk without the place she once held." A life, but not the same one. Not a return, a consequence, different but real. The man's gaze hardened slightly. "This is not mercy given lightly," he said. "It is a burden returned." He let that settle, then. He turned to Elias, "And you?" The words shifted again. Not judgment, not quite, something else. Elias held his gaze. "You are not of us," the man said again. "No. You are not our enemy." Elias said nothing, "Nor are you our ally." Still nothing. The man stepped closer, close enough that the space between them felt deliberate. "You stood where you did not have to stand," he said. Elias met his eyes. "Yes." "You took weight that was not yours." "Yes." "And you did not turn away when given the chance." "Yes." The man studied him, long, deep, then. "You are marked," he said. The word carried something Elias hadn't expected. Not threat, not warning, recognition. "You do not belong to us," the man continued, "but you will be remembered by us." Elias felt that settle in his chest. Different than fear, different than relief, something heavier, something that stayed. "You will walk your path," the man said, "but it will not be unseen." A pause then. "And that will follow you." Elias nodded once. "I understand." The man held his gaze one last moment, then turned away. The circle loosened, not breaking but shifting. The decision had been made. There was nothing more to say, no ceremony, no final word, just movement, men stepping back, the space opening, the weight lifting. Not gone but changed. Tala exhaled, soft, controlled. The first sign of release Elias had seen from her, not relief, but something close. She turned her head slightly toward him. You didn't have to do that, she said. Elias looked at her. I know. You could have walked away. I didn't. A faint pause, then. No, she said, you didn't. They stood there for a moment longer, the camp already shifting around them, men returning to tasks, to movement, to the rhythm that had paused only for the decision. Elias glanced toward the ridge. The sky was bright now, full day. It's done, he said. Yes. What will you do? She looked out across the basin. Walk, she said. Where? Where I'm allowed to. Not much of an answer, but enough. Elias nodded. They didn't speak again, not right away, because there wasn't much left to say. By midday they were ready. No one stopped them, no one guided them. No one offered anything, not water, not food, not direction, just space, just the absence of resistance. The older man stood at the far edge of the camp as they approached, watching, not blocking, not inviting, just there. Elias slowed as he neared him, stopped a few paces away. Tala did the same. For a moment no one spoke. Then Elias inclined his head slightly, a gesture, not submission, acknowledgement. The man returned it. Just as slight, just as deliberate. You walk now, he said. Yes. No one follows you. Elias nodded. And no one protects you. I understand. The man's eyes moved to Tala. You carry your choice, he said. I will, she answered. Do not forget what it cost. I won't. A final pause. Then. Go. They turned, walked. No one watched openly, but Elias felt it. The weight of eyes, the memory already forming. They climbed out of the basin, up through the same narrow passes, over the same hard ground. But it felt different now. Not easier, not lighter, just changed. By the time they reached the ridge, the camp had disappeared behind them, swallowed by the mountain, like it had never been there. They didn't stop, didn't look back. There was no reason to. By evening they found a place to rest, a small rise overlooking a stretch of open land. Elias sat down slowly, the day settling into his bones. Tala remained standing for a while longer, watching the horizon. Then finally, she sat beside him, not across, not distant, beside. You have somewhere to go, she asked. Elias thought about it. The cabin was gone, the life he had built there burned, the silence he had kept. Broken, no, he said. She nodded. I don't either. That might have meant something once, a problem, a danger now. It just was. They sat in quiet as the sun dropped, painting the land in long shadows and fading light. After a while, Tala spoke again. They'll remember you, she said. Elias let out a faint breath. So you said. It matters. Why? She looked at him. Because men who stand like that, she said slowly, they change things. Elias shook his head slightly. I didn't change anything. You did. He didn't argue, didn't agree, just let the words settle, because whether he believed them or not. Something had changed. He could feel it, not in the land, not in the sky. In himself, the man who had stayed out of it was gone, replaced by someone who had stepped in. And didn't step back. Night fell, the stars came out, same as always, same sky, same mountains, but not the same man beneath them. Days passed. They moved through the land without hurry, without plan, just walking, finding water where they could, rest where they needed. The world didn't stop for what had happened, didn't mark it, didn't acknowledge it, but word. Word had a way of moving, quietly, through traders, through travelers, through those who listened more than they spoke. A story began to take shape, not loud, not exaggerated, simple. A mountain man, a knock at his door, a choice made when it didn't have to be. And the fact that he had lived, it spread the way such things do. Slow. Steady, carried by those who understood what it meant. Elias heard it once. From a man passing the other direction on a narrow trail, didn't know him, didn't recognize him, but the man nodded as they passed, a look, a recognition. Then he was gone. Elias didn't ask, didn't need to, he understood. The mountains remained, cold, unforgiving, unchanged, but somewhere within them. Something had shifted, not the land, not the people, something quieter. A line moved, a story added, a man who had stood when he didn't have to, and because of that, the world, in some small, unseen way, was not exactly the same. If this story stayed with you, ride with us again. Subscribe and help keep these frontier tales alive for the next firelit night. Because out here, every name has a past, every trail has a cost, and every sunset still remembers. Until next time, friend, keep your hat tipped to the past and your heart pointed west.